And we'll start with the A, which is ask. So I've got a word, for obviously, that's, acronyms, that's how they work. You know that. Right. First step then is to ask. Now here's the problem that I find. Actually, I'm going to start with this. I'm going to focus on Google Ads. But you could use this for Google Analytics. Again, Mercer talked about this in the training. You could use this for your Facebook analytics. My hope is that you can even apply this same framework to the P&L of your business. There are two main things that you want to ask questions of when it comes to Google Ads, and that is the structure of the account itself and the performance. Now, structure is going to be something that you probably ask the most questions of when you're maybe auditing that account or when you've just inherited that account. If there are multiple people working on the account at the same time, then look, you might want to be checking structure. You might want to put some automation, we're going to talk about that, in place to check on that structure over time. Most of it, though, is going to be focused on the ongoing performance data and the performance metrics of the account. You want to ask questions of the ongoing performance and know what those questions are before you open up the tool. So before you dive into Google Ads or Analytics or Xero or whatever tool you use for the P&L of your business, and know what those questions are going to be in advance. And we'll talk about the cadence of those questions and the time frame for those questions. A couple of examples just to put some meat on the bones and make this a bit more real for you. And I know that my video is going to end up covering up bits of this page, but you're smart, you'll work it out. Right, some ideas around structure, or some example questions around structure. Which campaign types are being used? I'll show you how I think about campaign types on a slide in a little bit, but that's where I start. I start with context. I want to go from big picture down into the detail. I may bounce up and down between those, but I'm going to start with big picture, and that's pretty much every time I go in, because maybe somebody else has set up, maybe the client has set some new campaigns up. But big picture, I want to know what they are. And then I might want to know some structural details. How many ad groups are in each campaign? How many keywords are in each ad group? How many ads are in each ad group? How many extensions are being used at each level? Structural stuff. Is a tracking template being used? If it is that account level or campaign level? Or do I have to worry about keyword level URLs? That sort of stuff. Do I need to add in new ads? So from a structural point of view, not performance of the ads at this point, but just from a structural point of view, have I got loads of ad groups that have only got one ad? And I'll show you a screenshot of an account I've just been auditing. It has 137,000 ad groups, and almost all of them only have one ad. That may be a problem. That might be there for a reason, but it might be a problem. Which geos are we running in? And you could dig deeper into the structure side of that. Does the geo that is implied by the naming convention, does that match the settings of that campaign? Do I have things that say they're only running in the US, but they're actually running in the US, Australia, Canada, and the UK? So some structural stuff that we want to just be sure about. Most of the time, though, like I said, we're going to dive into the performance. So once I know the campaign types, I now need to know the performance of those campaign types. And there's two main things I look at there. We'll get to that in a sec. What's the top 5% of my ad groups or keywords or campaigns, or top 1% or top 10%? It doesn't have to be 5%, but typically that's where I'll start. What is the number and the percentage? That's what those first three symbols mean, because I want to know the number, I want to know the absolute, and I want to know the percentage. I want to know the relative value, because that, again, it gives me context. So if I said I've got 10 campaigns that need work today, that doesn't really tell you much, because if that's 10 campaigns out of 10,000 campaigns, oh, okay, that's very different to 10 campaigns out of 11 campaigns. So the percentage helps give me context for whatever it is that we're talking about. And again, just trying to match these to the previous slide. And another example might be geographies. That could be demographics, age, gender, household income. It could be all sorts of things, but what's underperforming, what's overperforming? And of course, the tricky part that you're going to have to do with your client is to define what performing means. What is good performance? What is bad performance? What is that CPA target? We've talked about profit curve in AgencySavvy before, which is a totally different conversation. I'm not going to include that in here. I'm going to assume for the optimizing part, which is what this whole presentation is about, is that you know what you are trying to optimize towards. But the step before all of this is to define success, is to define what those limits and targets and KPIs are actually going to be. I've published this before, but we have an audit which you'll find in AgencySavvy. You'll find it online if you search for me, I'm sure. But 130 plus questions that you can ask of an account. Now, these are going to be different questions if you're auditing an account and if you're looking at the same account every day or every week. But you can pick and choose from these questions and work out the ones that work best for you. And yes, change those for whatever works for you. Okay, I can't give you the perfect document with the perfect questions for you. Sadly, you're going to have to do a little bit of work to tweak that baseline and make it work for you. All right, but to do all of that, everything that we're talking about here is predicated on the fact that we have good, useful, accurate data to work from.